A sea of peace. That's how Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan described his goals for the Black Sea as he stood shoulder to shoulder with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy. President Erdogan also called for tensions between Russia and Ukraine to be resolved diplomatically and peacefully, adding he was ready to offer support to Kyiv. The meeting in Ankara came amid renewed tensions in Crimea and eastern Ukraine at levels not seen since fighting first erupted back in 2014. Moscow and Kyiv have been in a 7-year standoff over Russia's annexation of Crimea and its continued support for separatists in Ukraine's Donbass region. The two leaders were clear where they stood when it came to those disputes, that Turkey strongly supports Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Those calls were also echoed by U.S. President Joe Biden, who warned Russia over its recent military buildup along Ukraine's border. Russia, which is conducting military drills in the area, also warned the U.S. to stay away from its Black Sea coast. So will tensions spiral out of control, or is a diplomatic solution possible? And to break down where these renewed tensions could head, joining me from Yalova, Turkey, is Mehmet Ali Ugur. He is an assistant professor at Yalova University. And from Belfast, Alexander Titov. He's a lecturer at Queen's University, Belfast. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Mehmet, why have tensions flared recently in the region, and what's the reason behind this military movement?
Well, Donbass region is a very highly industrialized region of Ukraine. And we know that from 2014, after the annexation of Crimea, Russia showed interest in the region, especially helping those separatist elements in the area, and also help them to rise against Russia. And seemingly it's an internal issue, of course, but we know that there is informal Russian involvement, and also we see widespread evidence showing that these separatist movement is encouraged and supported Russia in the recent days again.
So, Alexander, what's your take on the Russian military buildup since it took place in a government-controlled region, not like the breakaway regions in Donetsk and Luhansk, where local proxies are dependent on Russian support? And do you believe that Russia is preparing to invade Ukraine?
No, I don't think they are preparing to invade Ukraine. I think what they're trying to do is to send a message to various actors, both inside the Ukraine, to the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and people around him, that any flare-up of hostilities around the rebel-controlled areas will be met by a very aggressive response from Russia as well, but also send message to the Ukrainian allies or backers in around Europe, United States, that Russia is serious about it, and that highlight again that the Donbass conflict is the most unfrozen conflict in the whole of the post-Soviet space. It has tendency to flare up, and I think there is kind of insistence on Russian understanding that both the United States and Europe don't really want to have another war in Europe, and therefore, if they don't want to avoid this, then they have to, talk to Russia.
So the U.S. has canceled warships deployment to the Black Sea, Mehmet. Has Russia's warning to the U.S. to stay away from Crimea paid off? How? Why?
Well, we can say yes. I mean, we have another example. If we just travel a little bit into history, some 10 to 12 years ago, similar things happened in another coast of Black Sea in Georgia.
Yes.
So when United States backed the political process of in Georgia, the message came very strong, of course, from the north, and the Russians entered, as we remember, to the South Ossetia to help those elements as well. So what I can say is this. I mean, I think the Biden administration is determined not to make the similar mistake in Donbass area. That's why I can say that, yes, it was a very clear and very powerful message from Russian side. And I think it's also a good sign, a constructive sign, I should rather say, that the United States or other external forces should not get engaged that much in the Black Sea. After all, it's a very closed basin, so it is a better idea to stay away from the region, particularly when it comes to bringing to nuclear powers against each other.
Yes.
I think it's kind of a dangerous scenario.
So, Alexander, is the Black Sea poised to become a new international flashpoint? And where, in your opinion, where does this leave Turkey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's already become a flashpoint because, as already mentioned, since the breakup of the Soviet Union, you have these various conflicts flaring up around the Black Sea shore. Georgia and Ossetia, of course, didn't start in 2008. There was a civil wars. Breakaway wars in early 1990s, unresolved. The 2008 was kind of developing on that. You have conflict in Moldova, again, pro-Russian forces breaking away from the place. And now you have Crimea and
Yes.
Donbass in Ukraine. So it's already a flashpoint. The reason is that how do you want to calm it down, or you want to expand it to be even greater? So I think Americans sending ships is a symbolic gesture, would have been if they did go in, but I don't think they would have tried to interfere in the conflict, because Russia still controls militarily the Black Sea around around itself. So and again, avoiding conflict is the key here. But Turkey is, of course, the key element because it controls the Turkish Straits and it's a NATO member, but at the same time it has very close relations with Russia in all sorts of sphere, from economic sphere, energy sphere, to security sphere in Syria, in South Caucasus, Nagorno-Karabakh, and so forth. So, the role of Turkey is key here to kind of keeping the Black Sea away from escalating with external factors.
So at a time when President Erdogan urged all sides to show some restraint, Mehmet, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov warned Turkey to stop supplying weapons to Kiev. What kind of ramifications this could have on Ankara-Moscow ties?
Well, if we just, again, pay attention to the recent the developments around this geography around Turkey, Turkey and Russia came face to face. Not always on the opposite sides, but sometimes they...
Usually they are. They are usually on the opposite sides.
Well, sometimes they were able to coordinate, I should rather say. But we know what happened, especially in the Transcaucasia between Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict. Turkish UAVs, armed UAVs, were very decisive for the outcome of the conflict. That's why Russia knows what kind of changes can happen if there is a strategic relationship between Turkey and Ukraine. So Turkey is, of course, trying to be, as neutral as possible. But we know also that Turkey is elevating the sort of relationship to a strategic level with Ukraine. So I don't think that will, end up just changing the position of Turkey. And as President Erdogan rightfully said, Turkey always is ready to, help the sides to find an amicable, peaceful solution for any kind of conflict they are currently experiencing. So,
Alexander, how do you think it'll manage to strike a balance between Ukraine and Russia? Because we know that Turkey needs to acquire jet engines from Ukraine, which are very needed for its indigenous attack helicopters.
Yes, I think Turkey will have to work very hard to strike the right balance between Russia and Ukraine. I think Russians' point of view is that if you want to continue the relations with Russia, you can't be supplying Ukraine with high assault weapons. At least that's their point of view. And there are issues, in the past, not very recent past, when the Turkish shot down the Russian plane in Syria. You have a huge fallout in terms of economic embargoes and so forth, which they eventually lifted. But that sort of things you can see that relations would deteriorate if Turkey moved too close to Ukraine as well.
Yes.
And at the same time, yes, I mean, there are kind of issues of Turkey in terms of relations with Ukraine. It doesn't want to, be completely dependent on Russia in that respect. So we're very, very hard bargain. And I think particularly will be difficult if there is another flare-up in the conflict and Turkish weapons are involved. That could lead to kind of quite a little tension between Moscow and Ankara.
So, Mehmet, is the American leadership back on track, and how likely it is for major European countries to align themselves with Washington at the cost of their lucrative relations? Maybe we can also talk about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Yes, exactly. The right point you made already. So I was going to mention about that as well. Turkey was always on the side with NATO, understandably, when NATO was expanding eastward, including former Warsaw Pact countries, to as east as the Baltic countries and our northern neighbors, Romania and Bulgaria. So that's one point. But when we come to the western portion of European members of NATO, I don't see that kind of support, and I don't expect that amount of support when it comes to the possible membership of Ukraine. As you pointed out, I mean, Germany is just behaving sort of independently when it comes to its own national interests, because as we remember, when the crisis first flared up between Russia and Ukraine before,
yes,
the result was, the problem, energy shortages in almost across anywhere in Europe. So that's why it is a priority of Germany to, have these positive links, especially on the energy sector with Russians. So that's why I don't think Germany at first place, and probably France as well, probably they won't just support NATO engagement with Ukraine to that end.
So, Alexander, how likely it is for sides to restore dialogue at the basis of Minsk agreement, which hasn't been fully implemented by neither side?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I would just add that to the previous point, though, that, of course, Turkey is the second largest buyer of Russian gas, too, and it has two pipelines under the sea, the Blue Stream and the Turkish Stream. So it's kind of in the same position to Germany in that respect. But so far as Minsk is concerned, I think the Minsk basically is dead so far as there's prospects of finding a political solution there is concerned, because it's simply, I think it's important to remember about Minsk is that it was signed during kind of collapse of the Ukrainian army in 2014 and then again 2015. It was a way to stop fighting, right, and stop Ukraine from complete defeat. So they signed up to this deal, which they don't really want to implement, which essentially the deal is to give a wide autonomy to Russian-dominated regions in eastern Ukraine, which would basically give Russia entry into Ukrainian politics.
Yes.
Ukrainian leadership is not going to do it. So, and Russia is not going to give up its hard-won games for anything else. So I don't think Minsk is going to go anywhere.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.